entrepreneurs and investors. Today, I'm joined by Pierre, a former professional basketball player, turned entrepreneur and investor. Born in the Gambia, Pierre moved to the US for university, carved out a professional basketball career across Europe and Australia, and now leads Remode, a company specializing in market entry and expansion, fundraising, and capital deployment, especially from the Nordics into Africa. He recently relocated his family from Finland, which is amazing, to Kinshasa in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is where he's tuning in today from, actually, and is now preparing
Yeah.
for Remote's East Africa Investor Tour this October in Kenya. And we're excited to have Jasiri Network as one of their community partners for this investor tour. And yeah, Pierre, it's a pleasure to have you today. Welcome.
Thank you, Nancy. It's a pleasure to be here. And thank you for the invite.
Amazing. I think we'll start with a quick fire round just to sort of get to know a little bit about Pierre and what you're all about. So, first question, one word that your friends would describe you.
By the way, I'm the least interesting person usually in the room, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I would say maybe empathetic.
Okay,
Uh, yeah.
interesting.
At least those that call me a friend. So,
Mm-hmm.
and vice versa. Yeah.
I was going to say tall because you're like 6'8". But
These days,
anyway,
that's not as tall. You see people who
okay.
are 7'5", right? So,
Okay, cool. Another question. Out of all the cities you've lived in, and you've lived in quite a couple of cities, which city has shaped you the most and why?
I think that's a difficult question.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for me, I pick something from every city, so it'll
Mm-hmm.
be a miss if I only said one.
Okay.
I think living in Melbourne, for example, has been the best fit in terms of living, where you just jump in and you feel like you're at home. At least in my experience. Um, I remember living in Edinburgh, and that was perhaps from the sports angle, that was one of the biggest jumps I made because I was able to, I had a pretty short gap and I was able to practice like hell by myself,
Yeah.
which was the biggest jump I made from a sports angle. Of course, Banjul is a place that has shaped me from the beginning, so it helps me stay grounded. And I would say Kansas City has given me an opportunity to look at family from a much bigger perspective. I had a foster family that I'm still very close with. They are my family, and they've helped me see the world in a much bigger perspective in terms of family than just my core family. But overall, if I was to pick one, I would say that biggest jump in Edinburgh.
Yeah, it's a beautiful city as well. A bit rainy,
Mm,
but beautiful.
yes, and I spent a very short time there
Okay.
playing for the Kings, but yeah, it was very memorable.
Awesome. Awesome. And still on basketball, like what's that one lesson that you picked up during your pro days that you've carried into business?
Hmm.
Hmm.
I would say that there is an I in team that we don't usually talk about. And I would say that I means that you have to be really good at your role in order for the team to be successful, um, the way the team needs to be successful. So that I part, your role needs to be, you need to be the MVP of that role. It could be, you're the leader. It could be you're the supporting guy, the hype man, the one who gives passes and all those things. Uh, you have to be an MVP in your role for the team to be successful.
Oh, that's interesting. I haven't had anyone in sports sort of take that sort of perspective, but I think it makes sense because the team is only as strong as the individual players. So if
Yeah,
people are not playing their role right, then it doesn't
yeah,
make sense even at a team
yeah.
level. Okay,
Hmm.
right.
Yeah.
If you want building remote, your current business, what would you be doing right now? Don't say pro basketball.
Definitely not.
Uh-huh.
I love basketball, but not to that extent. I mean, my parents, African parents, I was born and raised in Gambia. My African parents always said how important education was. They never talked about sports, right? So for me, yeah, to end up playing basketball is like this crazy thing. But anyways, I would do one of two things. Um, I would either build a channel that reinforces self belief and exceptionalism within Africans, those who are living currently in Africa, because for decades and even longer, we've been thought to be less than. And unfortunately, that message has filtered through the generations. And it is very, very important that this message of self belief, that you are enough, is preached across the continent. If not that, I would be building basically marketing Africa the way it's supposed to be, like the Americans market America or the Europeans market their different countries. There are a lot of shit places, in ghettos and places where there's a lot of homelessness in the US. But you never hear about that in, um, you know, the general media. But when it comes to the African continent, we only talk about mostly the bad stuff instead of focusing on the good stuff, what's happening. So I would build that.
Okay.
It could be a combination, of course, but yeah.
Yeah, but like I do feel like all those different aspects you mentioned are kind of captured in one or the other by Remote, actually. Come to think of
A
it.
little bit, not a little bit.
Yeah, aspects of
Yeah,
them.
it would be a niche in that sense that,
Yeah.
boom, that's the focus. Yeah.
Cool, cool, cool. If you had to describe the Gambia in one word, especially for people who've never been, what would you say?
Jeez, that is so tough. Um, I guess peaceful is a word that would kind of ring a bell for most Gambians.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would have other words too, but let's stick with peaceful.
Okay. And it's a relatively small country. I think the population is 3 million people.
Yeah, you would think it would be easier to make it the Singapore of Africa, wouldn't it?
Maybe,
But we're not
maybe in
talking
a few
about
years.
politics today.
Yeah. Okay, amazing. Well, thank you so much, Pierre. And I think that's a great start to this live podcast. And I think for a few minutes, I want us to spend sort of like on your personal journey, especially with, how you made the move from the Gambia to the US, because you were mentioning, basketball wasn't something you had thought of getting into, but like, how did that move come about? And how did you also get into professional basketball fast in the US, and then now going to Europe, Australia, and it was like 15 years of this, I'm assuming, amazing career, because like everybody wants to be part of like a professional basketball player.
Uh, no, not everybody.
A lot of people.
I'm sure you
I
didn't want
would,
to.
but I'm 5 feet, so you know I can't dream
Yeah,
that one.
yeah. I think it's still surprising to me that happened, because living in Gambia, going to school in Gambia, I was actually really good at volleyball. I was part of our national team when I was in high school. Um, so very, very good at volleyball. Played basketball a little bit, but not too much. But I was this tall, skinny kid who could run, jump, and, of course, block shots. My eldest brother, when he graduated, I have two older brothers and one younger brother. My two eldest brothers, when they graduated, they went to the US. And like every good American family, chain migration happens. And I joined them for education. And when I got to university, my eldest brother, took me to the coach to meet him, and the coach was like, "Yeah, I mean, we have a tryout, so you should come." I think this was like after a month or so. So I went to a tryout. They were selecting about 5 people for scholarships, and out of 100 and something people, I was selected. And I've played very, very little organized basketball, very, very little. So it was like a deer in the headlights. I was surprised that I was selected to begin with, um, out of all those kids who've played a long time. And yeah, that was the start of playing basketball in the US, from a
Wow.
collegiate level. Yeah.
That's amazing, you know. It seems the talent was always there, you know. And they
Just
say,
luck.
yeah, I mean, talent. But you see, the thing is, even with luck, there needs to be a sense of preparedness for that particular moment. So it has to be the
Mm,
right timing, the right people, the right circumstances for everything
mm,
to sort of play out. And I have so much respect for people who play competitive sports. I used to play field hockey when I was in
mm.
high school. Yeah,
Right.
so I have so much respect. At some point, I also played volleyball. I was horrible. I played
Mhm,
netball. I was horrible as well. But like field hockey is that one thing that kind of like stood out for me. I guess
mhm,
because there is a need for you to be tall. So yeah, that for me panned out really well. So here you are in the US, starting to play basketball in uni. But like, how does that get then go to pro, and how do you move to Europe? And in Europe, you move to several countries as well, and also ultimately going to Australia. How did that
mm.
whole career pan out from the US?
Yeah, I mean, US is college basketball based.
Yeah.
Well, I played in the collegiate level, and the university I played in, William Jewell in Missouri, they've been playing basketball since 1898, and our team, uh, during the last 2 years, I mean, we recorded the most wins in school history. The team played really, really well, had a couple of really good coaches as well. So um, when my graduating class, I think I was the only one from the team. Um, and I graduated the captain. And yeah, so when I graduated, or before I graduated, I had a few guys, agents, who were like, hey, you can be a professional in X, Y, or Z. Never crossed my mind that I could. So, because never dreamed about being a basketball player, a professional basketball player. So, yeah, I was young and didn't know the ways of the world. So I figured, why not? So the agent got me my first gig, my first job in Birmingham, of all places. Played for the Birmingham Bullets, my first stop. And yeah, it was a very good lesson for me. And that's how it started. Uh, and then, you know, different countries that I played in, whether it's Scotland, did a little bit in Ireland, did in Finland, of course, for many years, did Estonia, in playing in different leagues, in Australia for 4 years as well. So yeah, very good for a guy who loves to travel and see new places. This was awesome for me.
Amazing. All the good stories start with why not? That's how I came to learn. I was like, why not? And when you're young, I think it's easier to sort of pack up and leave. So yeah, definitely happens a lot. And I guess like you said, you're young, you love to travel, and it gave you that opportunity to do that. Like, traveling does really expand the way you think, the way you connect with other different cultures and people. And so it's interesting just to see also the transition that you made from college basketball to professional, across multiple countries, and now getting into business. So at what point then do you start thinking of, okay, I've had a good run and I want to sort of now transition from being a professional basket player to running your own business? Because a lot of times you find people who've been in sports tend to either go into, you know, the side of business of sports, so they either do something related to sport, to the sport that they're in, or they also venture into the sports in different capacities, either as a presenter, like a sports presenter, which is very common, or like a coach, or even buying a team, if you're at that level. But like, yeah, so how did you make the transition, and how did you make the decision to sort of get into business, and the type of business that you decided to end up with?
Uh, Good, very good question. I have to say that a lot of times we glorify sports, especially from a professional angle, and there's little glory there for those who play, man. The amount of hard work and hustle and stress and going up and down that exists is amazing. Unless you are the top of the top of the top, you are treated like dirt for the most part. You're, a piece that can be traded or cut off or whatever at any time. So, yes, it's amazing that you can play a sport and be paid for it. But the amount of work you put in, if you really want to be, oh my God. And if you're talking about Europe, so I was never good enough for the NBA. Um, I played in decent leagues in Europe, but not the best of the best. So you're looking at um, eh, yearly contracts. The max I had was 2 years, right? And it becomes really, really challenging to like fix all that stuff. And I decided very early on that I don't need agents. So I was my own agent as well. So being able to navigate all this stuff um, was very, very, very difficult, but also pretty rewarding in many different cases. So to answer your question, um, the transition has, for me, always been in mind, and I was always doing something practical about it. Because you have to remember, my parents always said sport is just for fun. In fact, in Wolof in Gambia, we say fo as sports, like or tagat yaram, which is like warming the body, and fo means fun, right? So like, there's nothing professional or something you would do within that zone that would make you kind of a lot of money back then, anyways. Now is a little bit different. So, having that background in mind, I was always thinking, what's a degree I can get in terms of education? Because my parents were educationists. Um, so I was through by playing basketball, of course, in college. I got my bachelor's, and then during my professional career, I also did my master's. Um, and then also, of course, I had different projects that I was working on. uh, I was always cognizant of the fact that uh, I was lucky because I didn't play basketball when I was younger. There were so many kids in our high school who were much, much better than me, but never got an opportunity. I was just lucky because my brothers were in the US and I got accepted to go study. So I think this cognizance was also driving me to do something back home, to give back, and also whenever I'm in different cities, to be able to look at who are the people who look like me who could benefit from something I did. So I always had, either I was volunteering for different organizations that were promoting education through sports or promoting integration, or I was creating projects for example, intercultural competence, and those kinds of things. So for me, it has always been there. Even for example, in Melbourne for the team, I told them that part of the contract needs to be able to help update their websites and do other things, right? Which was something, especially in the beginning of my career, that I was still transitioning because I graduated bachelor's with a bachelor in business information systems, so computers and business combined. So I think it was always in me. And
Okay.
perhaps maybe on the remote side, the transition has been always clear. Like having lived in the Nordics for a long time, my first time going to the Nordics, Finland particularly, was 2004, 2005, sorry. Um, and having seen what their history has been during the last 40, 50, 60 years, and how they were able to transition that into one of the best, if not the best, regions to live in, has always drawn me. And for me, it's what are these lessons that can be learned from both? What can the Nordics learn from the African continent, particularly in the regions that I grew up in, and vice versa? So that connection for me led to kind of thinking more about remote and what we can do.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting, hearing that. And sports is not just, it's mental, it's physical, it's emotional, it's so much. It takes a lot. It takes a lot for
Mhm.
you to even perform at that level. So I can only imagine. And then on top of that, you're negotiating your own deals. That was brave, Pierre, but I mean, kudos to you. Kudos to you. Um, wow. And I think something else maybe I'd love to hear your take, and I think you might have mentioned it slightly, which is around getting some bits in the contracts, like supporting the business side of teams. But like, how did you sort of start picking up things in your professional basketball career to now see how it transitioned into business, or kind of like what the learning points? I know earlier you mentioned how there's an I in team, and so you have to be really good at what you're doing to be able to contribute to the team. But like, what are some of also the lessons and insights that you got throughout that whole time, and now bringing it into business, or you've seen sort of come up in business?
I think one of the biggest things, and some people question if this is transferable or not. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm totally on the other side that this is very much transferable skill. That when you look at so grit, I think this is one of the biggest things you can learn. Teamwork is fantastic, but grit, I mean, is amazing to build and develop your grit because within a short period, just within the game itself, you really have to be gritty. Otherwise, you cost the team the game. Like mistakes are going to happen, shit is going to hit the fan. But how do you build from that? When you miss a shot, how do you make sure that that doesn't kill your entire mood to do other things? When you miss 5 shots, how does that translate into you doing 10 other things way better than everybody else to keep you on the court? Because remember, like if you're a professional, and during my time, we had these import positions. So these are like the, the experts who come into a team. They're usually three, maximum four in each team that come in to reinforce the local side. So how do you stand out so that you don't get sent home, right? Even if you're not shooting well, because that happens. So this thing about let's pick it up for the next one. Let's start again from zero. Even when you make a shot, let's start again from zero and hustle like that type of grittiness is something that you develop, and it's these short sprints. And being able to translate that into the business cycle where, I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, it's like this, like everybody knows, right? Outside looking in, it could look great, but inside, things could be falling to 1 million different pieces. So, how do you maintain that grit, knowing that, how do you keep that cool, knowing that there are opportunities for you to grow? Um, yeah, I think that's the biggest part.
Yeah. You say there are peaks and also like low points. And I don't think entrepreneurship is like this. I think entrepreneurship is all over the place. At least from my experience. But yeah, I mean it makes sense. And I guess from the player side, from the sport side, and you've moved across various cities, across various countries. What aspects as well did you sort of pick up either for your personal self, or at a more team level, or even business? So I think you've
Mhm.
mentioned a couple of cities there: Birmingham, Edinburgh, Melbourne in Australia. So across these various countries, across these various cities, what are some of the things you picked up culture wise that you now carry with you, personally, and also that you carry with you in terms of business? I think you might have mentioned how you quite loved the transition of the Nordics,
Mhm.
I know there's some aspects that you're like, yeah, these are really great to also transfer elsewhere. But like, what else did you find during that time?
It's a very good question. I I like to think of myself as very open and like kind of like a sponge, that I get to learn a lot. Um, and I think one of the biggest things for me has been being able to understand that yes, we are very, very different people, but on the whole, we are so similar, regardless of where we go. That has been such a fantastic learning experience, and it has reinforced itself over and over and over again. And especially with this fact that it does not matter how much money you have, it does not matter what family line you came from, what title you have, that people are inherently similar. And being able to connect with these people, regardless of these nuances that I talked about, is I think one of the pleasures of life. Um, because looking from the outside in, what you see could be so different from what the reality is. So for me, the biggest thing has been from a cultural perspective, being able to maybe from all these cities, being able to understand uh, uh, me better, right? Instead of just saying, I'm in Australia, let me try to understand how Australians work and how, how to communicate with them better, etc. It's more like, how do I interact with people from Australia? Do I have biases towards them? For example, people from the islands like Torres Straits or whatever. Uh, are there prejudices with which I come with when I see a person of color, when I see a white person, right? Or an Asian person? How do I interact with them? And this is partially also why I really love Melbourne, because it was this melting pot of people from all different races, but you know, you wouldn't realize it. You would just fit right in, at least from my experience. So to answer your question, I think the biggest thing I can glean from living in all these different places has been the my intercultural competence and how to develop and grow that.
Yeah, yeah. And then after all those years across Europe, Australia, US, you then pack up your family and you're going to Kinshasa. How did you arrive at that? Like, and why did you pick Kinshasa? As a Kenyan, I'm always very biased to Nairobi. But yeah, tell us about like the thinking behind you moving from Finland and now making Kinshasa your new sort of home. To say, and you didn't go to the Gambia. You're like, I'm going to the Democratic Republic of Congo in Kinshasa. You know.
Yeah, well, Kinshasa itself, I guess officially, they say it's 17 plus million. Unofficially, it's more like 20 plus. The country has over 100 million people, has all the resources, has everything else in it. There's a lot of reasons for people to move to Kinshasa. We were actually planning to move based on uh, Kenya was a big option, and that this would have been more for Remode. But then, due to our family and especially my partner having work in DRC, that made it much easier to move here and set up. But I think Africa has always been the goal. I think looking at all the regions in the world where there is hyper growth still remaining, I think this is the last um, place. This is the last region. So, yeah, if you're not in Africa yet, you might be too late.
True, true. I agree. And yeah, I mean, all the best because I know you made the move recently, and I also can't wait to visit Kinshasa. I'm a big, big, big fan of like the music and the culture out there. But yeah, I think now that we've gotten here, I'd love for us to talk more about like remote, sort of the business side of it and why you thought this is where you wanted to go next, and what sort of gap in the market were you seeing? I know we've talked a little bit about connecting the Nordics to Africa, but like yeah, like how were you viewing it? What was the mindset when you're coming up with remote? And I know you have other co-founders as well, but on a day-to-day basis you're the CEO. So yeah, share with us a little bit about remote, about what it does, and yeah.
Yeah, thanks. So Remote was born out of this idea that there needs to be a change in the mode of operation, mode of doing business between Europe and the African continent. There's a long history of just taking, especially from the European side of things. And now that we know that Africans have woken up, Africans are very educated, participating in some of the best companies in the world, leading some of the best companies in the world, creating and building some of the best companies in the world. Um, we need to be able to change this narrative, and there needs to be positive effects of those who want to change this narrative. So this idea of remote came about to be able to change that narrative. So in essence, what we do is we help entities that want to expand and thrive in the African continent to do so, whether it's from a market entry standpoint or from an investment standpoint. So shortly, this is what remote does.
Awesome. I was actually going to ask you about like what does, the connecting the Nordics to Africa mean in practice, but I think you've touched a little bit about that unless you want to expound a little bit on that because a lot of people talk about market expansion, market entry, investment, but what exactly does that involve?
Yeah, so I mean, it starts with the people.
Mm-hmm.
Companies, yes, but people are the people. People are the ones who do the work. And man, there is so much differences in terms of how we work. right? In terms of how we interpret things. I mean, even in terms of the words we use on a daily basis, my idea of time could be extremely different from uh, some, Swedish person's perspective of, or German person's perspective of time. Uh, your idea of trust you know, like you're using the same word, but meaning something very, very different. Um, uh, Practical example. So we were saying about trust, right? Um, Most people from the African continent, especially if you're looking at uh, those who are from these societal based communities, trust is more of something that you build, right? It's relationship based trust. Whereas when you're talking to a European, for example, a Finn, for example, trust is more based on competence, right? So from a business angle, somebody from Kenya is looking at how do we build trust before we actually start our operations in 3 months or whatever. And the finish is going, okay, I just flew in. Let's go straight down to business because this is based on competence. We've seen your CV, it checks well. Let's just go straight to business. Whereas this other person is thinking, let's build relationships first before we do business. Two different things. And what happens is, of course, competence trust is easy to build, but it's very, very easy to break. Whereas if you look at these relationship type trusts, then those are very difficult to build, but last a lot longer. So if you're thinking from a longevity perspective for your business, are you looking to build something that lasts, or are you looking to build something that with one helping these companies to connect and work together? That it's not just about what I can achieve right now. There's no quick business in Africa. There's never quick money or easy money in Africa. If you want to build, you have to build trust, you have to build relationships, right? And these are the things that we have to work with.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And for me, it was the same, even in corporate. Forget the investors, forget the, market expansion, even the small things for people doing 9 to 5 in corporate. The cultures are very, very different. The way you relate with people is very different. And I think Africa is very different in the way we do business, in the way we work with each other compared to some of these other markets or the other regions. And unfortunately, if you're not aware, you can lose a lot of one, money, time, resources. You might also even lose your people team that are working for you because you don't know about these nuances. And I think with people, they're also complex. They will sometimes, people not always say exactly what they mean. And so having somebody to almost sort of translate that, and I've found myself doing that a lot, as well with the Jasiri network, being like, yes, this is what they say, but actually this is
Yeah,
exactly what they mean. Or yes, this is
yeah,
what they say, but this is how it's, transfers on ground. And
yeah,
even doing business as a Kenyan in the UK, and also doing
yeah,
business back home as a Kenyan in Kenya, two different worlds. You can't apply
yeah,
the same thing across the different markets. And
yeah,
so I definitely hear you. And so you can imagine if now you're talking about millions of investment, there's so much at risk. And you also want to sort of get it right as well in terms of building the relationship and thinking long term, as opposed to just thinking you can fly in and fly out and operate a business.
yeah,
And I guess for you guys, you've also been very intentional in building teams on ground, and yourself also being on the continent. So that's also something I've seen in the business where some people operating from outside of the continent instead of actually being close to the action? Was also that something that you are conscious about,
Yeah.
building for Africa, but also building while in Africa?
Hmm. It's really, really important. Many times we meet some African diaspora who, yes, they were born and raised in Africa, but have lived in Europe or America for a very long time. And after 10, 15 years, they decide, oh, yeah, I can do this thing where I'm connecting. It's like, yeah, not everybody can do that, you know? Uh, the rate of change in the African continent is crazy. You live in one place, you come back after 3 or 4 months, you might be surprised how the neighborhood would have changed, right? Construction everywhere, other things as well happening,
Policies, regulation.
policies,
Yeah,
exactly, right? So it's really, really important to get somebody who's competent,
yeah.
and understands the different nuances, including as basic as communication styles, you know. So, yeah.
True. No, I think we can talk about all those nuances and differences until, until the end of this. But I wanted to jump onto another conversation that I wanted to sort of bring out, and which is the East Africa investment tour happening in October. I'm quite excited
Mm,
about it, and I think there are several things I wanted you to share. One, is this the first investor tour that Remote is doing? And also, two, I know this is different from a lot of people perception of what an investor tour is. I think anytime somebody mentions an investor tour, you might think of a conference, of a summit, but this is a little bit different. I think you're bringing a lot of like partners, a lot of um, also matchmaking behind the scenes ahead of even people traveling in. I know you have
mm,
quite a number of people traveling in from the Nordics and also just globally. But also ahead of that, there's a lot of conversations and behind the scenes sort of you know ideal appropriate matchmaking of these opportunities and investors. But yeah, I'd
mm.
love to hear more about the investor tour.
Yeah, so thanks for the question. So we have this Africa Investor Tour where we are going to different regions. Um, East Africa, of course, is one of the best places to start, for many, many different reasons. Maybe we'll go through those reasons later. But we've done something in Rwanda beginning of this year, perspective, because as we know, um, the African continent is still the has the least amount of funding from all these regions, in spite of the growth potential, in spite of the opportunities from not only the population, but the increase towards the middle class and those with spending power. And I mean, let's face it, every economy develops because of availability of people who can spend, right? The purchasing power. And that is what the African continent presents at a bigger scale than most places. And from a projection perspective, also very, very clear how the population is going to double in the next 30 years or whatever it is. So I think from the remote perspective, what we've seen is that the experiences of doing the market entry projects, there's always this question about who's going to pay or where's the money going to come from. And it's a big disservice if we continue to have this conversation without bringing in the finances to be able to support the projects that really deserve it. And this is where the tour comes to play, but also not just like all the tours that we've been seeing, because most of the time everybody just flies in for the first time meeting and you know does their thing, and uh, there's room for little impact, or the impact that you're supposed to get, you don't end up getting that. So the change in this focus, and I hope other people see it and do it, is that you build relationships before, try to matchmake, try to help these companies find the right investors, find the right partners, um, and build the relationships before you get there, so that when you get there, it becomes middle or towards the end of your conversations. That's the EAIT.
Yeah, and you're also doing the investor matchmaking as well for Tech Barbecue, which is happening. Is it this month or next month?
In the next 14 days or
Yeah,
15.
and I
Yeah.
know Remode is the official matchmaking partner as well for that. So
Yeah.
okay,
Kudos to Charles Kinga for his fantastic work with Tech Barbecue and getting this Nordic Africa summit to a very reputable position. Being able to have these conversations between these regions, I think, is extremely important. But having action where people get to visit and see and talk and interact, I think it's even more crucial.
yeah,
So yeah, being able to like being the matchmaker, I think just means that we're able to help facilitate this, not only for the people attending the Nordic Africa Summit, but then also for the extended 8,000 people that usually attend Tech
yeah,
Barbecue. And if you know Tech Barbecue well, they are one of the best startup ecosystems, or not ecosystems, events that bring in quite a handful of investors. Um, yeah, so fantastic platform to get these investors to start
yeah.
seeing Africa in a better light.
I think that's great. And I think there's something else I wanted you to touch on briefly, and this is around the partnerships that Remote is doing and actively pursuing. So you guys are not just doing this by yourself, but you're also sort of bringing other people on board, and even more unique and from a Jasiri network point of view, you're also bringing community partners. So why is this sort of very important for you guys? And have you done this before and seen how it impacts on the outcome and sort of settling into these partnerships? But yeah, like, speak a little bit about all those different partnership, and even reaching out to the African diaspora to be part of these conversations, be part of this talks and all these different things happening. Because I think from where I sit and from where I've seen things is the African diaspora can be very fragmented, for lack of a better word. So you have people doing amazing things, but they're doing it by themselves. And it would be great for people to sort of also take on some of these projects or some of these conversations together for better outcome.
Yeah, I think partnerships are the only way to go. Um, if you want to, I mean, like in all seriousness, if you want to make a big impact, you have to work with others. And the African continent is huge. So there's no reason to work by yourself and try to build these things by yourself. So we're extremely happy and delighted to have partnerships such as yours. I mean, the diaspora is so important in everything we do. But it has always been difficult to transfer the diaspora um, money into tangible investments. That was actually the premise for Bantaba, for example, where Lamin, I worked with Lamin for a short period, founder, CEO of Bantaba. to be able to get diaspora investors to invest in African-based startups. Uh, Extremely difficult, but worth all the effort. Because what I see happening quite a bit is that because many of these European slash American investors have missed out on the likes of Southeast Asia and Latin America, they know that this is their last opportunity in terms of hypergrowth. And therefore, they're trying to learn, they're trying to look at what these opportunities are that they can start investing in within the African continent. But the diaspora is being left out. Um, they are more concentrating on a house or houses that they can build, on a business that they would run from their palaces in Europe. 9% actually. Uh, and it's a cycle that needs to be stopped, right? It's rather you become a small part of something much bigger than become a big part of nothing. So
Okay.
yeah, so from that angle, I think it's really important. In terms of partnerships, we're really excited to have also AfriLabs. AfriLabs 500 hubs in 53 countries, doing a fantastic job with the startup ecosystem in the continent. And then also there has been a new upcoming announcement that has been in the last stages of finalization with UNDP's one of UNDP's programs, so Timbuktu, and that's huge because the mere fact that UNDP went on that trajectory to mobilize or be in that process of mobilizing $1 billion in the next 10 years for the African innovation ecosystem, I think is huge and transformative for companies that are looking to build and innovate. So October 11th to 14th will be in Nairobi with at least 800 people at the UN House, one of the most iconic places to have events in Africa. And we'll be having our Investor Day as well as doing other things for the East African Investor Tour.
Sounds great. And then next year there's Rwanda and then there's Uganda as well.
Rwanda, March 9 to 11. I mean, Kigali is just a fantastic place. Rwanda in general, we've seen the growth that they've had from 94 to date, being one of the best countries in terms of many different metrics within the African continent. So we're just excited to work with them. We work very closely with Ambassador Diane Gashumba, ambassador to the Nordics for Rwanda, especially in doing the Nordic Rwanda Forum in Kigali last year, and now expanding it to the Baltics. So Investor Day would be one of the key things for next year's event in March. And then, of course, Uganda, what more can we say? The opportunities within that country and the development that's been taking place. And yeah, we are all very excited for Uganda as well in April. Yep.
Amazing. Well, I think that kind of brings us to the end of the conversation today, but we're going to close with another quick fire round because why not? First question. A habit or routine that keeps you grounded in the chaos of entrepreneurship?
Silence.
I was going to say
Silence.
basketball.
No. Silence. Um, because I was born and or been around people who talk a lot. I mean, in terms of countries, like from the African continent's perspective, and then America as well. It's about constant communication. Whereas, like from a Finnish perspective, it's more like silence. You wait until people start talking before you come up with your own talk, right? So that has been really, really good in just getting to connect with me.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. One piece of advice to give your 20-year-old self, and I'm assuming this is you in uni, probably in the US, playing college basketball.
Work hard, but work smarter. It's not always about hard work that gets you there. It's about, you know, how smart you can optimize things and not take shortcuts, but being able to optimize things so that you can get to the level you need to be faster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there's always a confusion of working hard, and yeah, yeah.
Yeah. True. What's one thing African startups are getting right, especially now when it comes to attracting investment?
Getting right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think the scale, communicating the scale of the target market and the untapped potential. I think that is something that's most startups are getting right. There are a lot of things they're not getting right though. So next time we'll cover that.
Next time, next time. Well, that's it for the quick round of questions. And if today's conversation with Pierre has sparked your curiosity about African innovation, if already you're not part of it, diaspora engagement, or investing in high potential founders, the East Africa investment investor tour in October 2025 this year is your chance to meet other startups, understand the ecosystem, build real connections, and also get closer to the investors attending. At Jasiri Network, we are proud to be the community partner, and we'll be sharing updates behind the scenes, maybe, and ways you can participate as well. Follow Remode, follow Jasiri Network on social media. You can also follow Pierre Jallow, myself. I'm quite active on LinkedIn, and if you're serious about investing in Africa's future, now is the time. Africa is the future, but you have to be part of it from the onset. And that's it from me today. Yeah, Pierre, thank you so much for being on the live podcast. I know being live can be a bit interesting, and in the previous ones we've had people dropping out because of Wi-Fi. Kinshasa seems to be doing really well. You didn't drop off, so kudos.
Not at all. Okay, because there was a couple of times I saw that
They
it was
were, but
lagging a
you
little
didn't
bit.
drop. That's what I'm trying to
Okay,
say. Yeah,
right.
yeah. But anyway,
Yes,
thank you
putting
so much.
Kinshasa on the map. I'm super happy about
Yeah, you
that.
representing each other really well, really well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
Thank
thank
you,
you,
Nancy. This has
everyone.
been awesome. I like these conversations, and yeah, looking
Awesome.
forward to many more offline.
Great, great. Well, thank you, everyone, and see you next time on another live edition. Cool. Bye.
Bye bye.